you forego some immediate
Welcome
attention
to
your
the
hand?
process already
Concentrate on
in
your
session. This is the Curtis
for-
Lowe
for a
trial.
short period of time?
Yes, yes. My focus was on him at that
Curtis
point.
Lowe, Curtis Reeves. Jeez.
We'll take you back to the process of standing up out of the chair. You're standing up and you're coming up. From your peripheral vision or anything, do you get any sensation that your husband had extended his hand towards the row behind him and brought it back?
No,
Did you get anything, sensation from your peripheral vision that his body at all broke the plane of the back of the chair and reached over with his hand and then came back?
no,
When you finally had your hand in a position where you felt the burning pain, just prior to that, did your hand ever come in contact with be consistent with someone leaning forward and coming back? You know, that oscillation of the hand. Did you ever feel that?
no.
Now, prior to the events that you just described, did your husband ever jump up and put his feet in the seat bottom of the seat?
No,
Did your husband use the F-bomb in any way directed towards the man that you recall
no,
prior to the sensation in your hand?
no,
Recall any statement to the effect, mind your own F business?
no,
Any statement at all, stay the hell out of my face?
What does that have to do with
Your
anything?
husband?
no.
People tell me my mom business all the time. My own effing business.
Prior to the time that your hand had that burning sensation, were you aware that a bag of popcorn had been retrieved from behind you and tossed back into that area?
I mean, does that not sound the stupidest thing you ever heard? Were you aware there was a bag of popcorn?
As you're coming up out of your seat and Chad, preceded and coming up, is that the only time that he stood up?
The only time, yes.
The only time that he stood up, you were coming up with him.
Yes,
That's it.
that's it.
Did you ever see your husband stand up and turn and face towards that area behind him?
Prior to
Yeah,
the
prior
shot?
to the sensation in
No,
your hand.
not prior to, no.
No. Okay. Did you ever see your husband standing in his aisle, facing back towards the aisle, and do some type of motion?
No, not from where I was looking.
This shooting happened 8 years ago in Pasco County, Florida, which is a
You knew that
is a hotbed
Your
for
husband had
live
been hurt.
PD. If you ever were
I
a
did, yes.
fan of that show,
you mentioned to us your concerns was towards him. Somehow, did you make your way down one row so that you could go to where your husband was?
Somehow I got down there, but I
You followed
assume I had to
the-
climb over the seat, but I don't recall how I got down there. But yes, I did get down out of the aisle.
Once you were on that aisle, were you able to obtain some type of wrap, bandage, something to put on your hand?
There was a gentleman that assisted me, yes.
At that point in time, did you see a gentleman sitting in the last row, up against the wall where the bistro was, that was directly behind your seat?
At that point of time, no.
I mean,
Did there come a point in time
Who
when
sits
you
in the
did
last
have an
row anyway?
opportunity to see that individual?
Yes,
people
I
that want to
did.
make out.
And that individual was sitting in the seat right behind yours.
Correct.
When you saw that individual sitting in the seat right behind yours, did it appear to be a man of similar stature as you saw go down the aisle leaving for the manager?
Yes.
And based on those observations and seeing where he was seated, did you have reason to believe that that was the man that was continually talking to Mr. Olson and yourself?
And the color of his shirt, yes.
Now, if you see that man in the courtroom today, I'm going to ask you to point him out.
Ooh, I love this part.
Describe what he's wearing for the court.
Yes. I was going to say the middle, but there's two gentlemen in the middle of this table here. It is the gentleman second to my right. He's wearing looks to be a grayish colored coat with a white shirt and a swirly tie, glasses,
Ugly ass tie.
grayish hair.
Grayish hair. He has hair.
Your Honor, record reflect, she's identified the defendant in this case, Curtis Reeves.
Oh man, I can't imagine being the widow, having to be on stand. I mean, you're just going to go see a movie. This is a good night.
At this time, I'm going to use various pieces of evidence that have already been admitted. I need about 2 minutes to set up the video.
This should be
post the
good.
board, if I may do that now. Thank you.
This should be good. We'll see. Excuse me, I yawned. If you hear me snoring, just mute me. That's kind of cool. She does not look like a judge. And I heard her speak. That's why I'm thinking that is a she. It's hard to tell these days, especially in Florida. I love the chair that the judge has. We need more of those. All these stupid little computer chairs, man, they suck. The only thing that chair needs is bigger wing back there. You know what else it needs? You're a judge. It needs to not have wheels. That's what I say. I want casters, not casters. Duh, casters are wheels. I mean, I want like I want solid legs. Casters. I was thinking cast iron. I don't know what's wrong with me. I need a nap is what's wrong with me. So they've already had a argument in here. I just realized I think the way that Twitch, because I'm streaming on Twitch, I think the way they do it, this may actually be on gaming, which would be hilarious. But anyway, they need a excuse me, before they started arguing about the raw data and what was what security camera footage and stuff they had, and it was, you could tell everything has changed because of the Rittenhouse trial. And everything that's in the Rittenhouse trial was, people were saying this beforehand in courts, is that you can't manipulate. I mean, like photocopies, there's a rule about photocopies in the rules of evidence. Matter of fact, I've got rules of evidence somewhere. I need to find those. But yeah, like photocopies, like they're accepted. I mean, technically, if you wanted to, you'd have to have have someone come in and swear to it that they were a true copy of the original. And that's what all this got started with, the Rittenhouse trial. Oh. That is a very expensive setup. A touchscreen that big? But just remember, they've been doing trials for hundreds of years. It's like now all of a sudden it's like you can't live without the newest technology in the courtroom.
I hope so.
Is it supposed to come up on the other screen?
It should. Did someone turn that off?
And I love this. Lawyers are notorious for not knowing anything about technology.
I don't know. I have it set on.
You know, I take that back. There's two kinds. You either have the kind that know everything about technology, or they know nothing about technology. And probably
No signal?
95% know nothing about technology.
Is it plugged in?
Yeah.
Hmm.
It is.
Well, I guess we can rearrange again.
What's that?
I guess we can rearrange again.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Let me just try to reset this. Let's see if it-
Changed. Before it said DVD. Oh, that's what it, now it says that again. Let's just rearrange.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Wow. This is riveting. Well, this is the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life. So let's do an update on what this is.
step down, Ronnie?
Yes.
Lost around, plus the wire. Feet on the X. All right, what I'd like to do is, we're gonna take you to where
Oh, they brought her down.
Mr. Reeves is. You see that part of the
That's weird.
video?
Yes, I do.
Now,
And we
at
can't
that
see the
part,
video.
I'm gonna run it backwards just a little bit.
We can't
As
see the
Mr.
video.
Reeves is walking in. At what point do you get a sensation that someone's behind you? Do you know?
When he leans forward and makes his very first comment.
All right. Let's go to that.
Okay, wait a second. I got shit's going on. I don't know if I trust this. I mean, trust this. I don't understand this.
Okay, you indicated the first presence is when you first felt the presence of someone behind. So if you would, let's bring Stacy to it. Let me walk around here. We're going to use this photo board so we can get an idea of where everyone's seat is, okay? Please show the jury what seat you were in. And the man behind you, what seat was he in? Okay. And your husband? All right, now as you watch the video.
Okay, I was checking to see if there was a. If I was missing out.
Behind your seat or off to his right?
He comes right, his face appears to be right in here, so to my right.
Oh, there's the popcorn. Right here's the popcorn.
Okay. And the first contact is what? About the phone.
You need to turn your phone off.
Okay. There's a response.
What's your problem?
And then we have coming back. And then within seconds, there's another contact.
Yes.
Now, again, the same positioning, leaning
Right.
in. At that point, are you able to see out of your peripheral vision, the head coming into view?
No, just the first time.
All right. And the second time, the words were?
From
What?
Mr. Reeves?
Yeah.
The same, but you need to put your phone away.
In the same manner, tone that we discussed. Okay.
I mean, why would you do that?
Now, there's a point where he leaves.
So, movie theaters, they don't want to have a responsibility for anything. They've passed all these laws where if you record the movie, oh, excuse me, it's a felony. It's like, I forget how long in jail. Even, I mean, it's one of those stupid things like it's a 10-year felony and all this stuff.
During that time period, we have.
They just need to do is to say, we kick you out if you use your cell phone.
I say on the phone, I'm not talking. So the phone's still out.
Still out. I'm sure he's distracted from the phone. We're, more focused on the conversation that he's having than on his phone. But yes, it's still out. Whether the screen timed off or what, I can't say. But yes.
Would you agree or disagree that your husband was just ignored?
Blowing him off. I would agree.
We then have the third contact that you talked about. So as we watch the video, again, show us the direction in which Mr. Reeves is leaning towards your husband.
This seat in between me and Chad.
On this particular incident, out your peripheral vision, are you able to see the man's head?
I don't see his head again.
You just hear what? What do you hear the man say?
Do I need to go get management?
The guy says, "Do I need to go get
Is there a
management?"
response by your husband?
Yes.
And what does he say?
Do what you need to do, or do whatever you feel you need to do.
You get the sense that he leaves?
Yes.
Gosh, man, could you imagine this guy in law school?
Now, as he is getting up, does he make any other comments?
Not that I'm aware of.
Does your husband make any other comments?
No.
Do you see him, do you turn and look and see the man leave at all?
No, not at this point.
And does your husband turn and look?
No.
There comes a point in time when he comes back, right?
Correct.
We talked about this before as he's coming back. Do you know precisely at what point a comment is made by Mr. Reeves?
He's behind us, but I don't know if he's sitting or standing or what he's doing. I don't look.
As Mr. Reeves comes back and begins to take his seat, do you notice any type of body movement by your husband to his left, to his right, behind?
No, we don't move.
Exactly when the statement that Mr. Reeves, you don't know whether he was standing or sitting.
I do not know. Reeves listening.
As we see Mr. Reeves come back, and this is camera 12, nothing by your husband at all
No.
as he's walking by?
No.
No. And as he takes his seat, he's going to take a seat right behind you?
I wish they'd show this.
You mentioned to us that your husband stood up one time.
Okay.
Oh, come on.
And
Can we go a little
you
bit
were
faster here?
simultaneously going up with it.
Few seconds later, yes.
When Mr.
And
Reeves
as you're
gunned
standing
down
up,
your
it's from
husband,
shot.
Yes.
approximately how far away were you from the muzzle of the weapon?
Do you ever see
Did you
your
see a
husband
blast?
standing and turning towards Mr. Reeves? And
Do you
throwing
remember
something?
ringing in your ears after the shot?
Do you hear any cussing, swearing, or
Did you
F-bombs
run?
by your husband?
No.
All right.
What were the first things out of your mouth? Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night screaming in fear?
Do you recall any type of encroachment in your space by Mr. Reeves before your husband began to stand up?
No.
And this guy decided he's the sheriff of the
At this point, it's
Pasco
where you
movie
explain,
theater.
or
Shoot first, ask
Yeah.
questions later.
both were mad, angry, frustrated.
It's hard to say what someone's feeling, but yes.
Yeah,
I
you got
think
the
I
impression that these two guys,
yes.
both of them were equally. Okay.
Pasco County movie
There comes a
theater.
point in time, like you said, when he
Don't
stands
mess
up
with popcorn.
and you stand up with him.
Sir, you spilled my
As-
popcorn. Bang!
As you're standing up and you're beginning to reach over, we talked about whether or not you ever felt the oscillation of the hand, as someone's moving their body like this.
No, I did not. He was standing up.
I'm sorry, I don't remember after my husband was shot in the face by this freak.
Were you aware of whether or not
I
your
wanted to use a
husband,
different word.
in fact, reached across the aisle behind it?
I was not aware of him.
And that was the time that you were standing
I
up?
was facing forward and then I was looking to my right to Chad. I never looked behind me at that point.
At any time, did you hold, restrain, body hug, or whatever that would give someone the impression that you were holding someone back that was in a range?
No, I had no need to. No.
When we talk about
Can't wait for the cross.
as you're getting up,
Cross will be tomorrow. Was it buttered popcorn? Like, was there extra greasy butter in the popcorn?
as you're
Was
standing,
it hot? It could burn
when
an
the
eye.
fire- when you hear the loud noise, that is when you feel the burning sensation in your hand.
It's
You hadn't even gotten up out of your seat yet.
just barely. I was
Right.
on my way up.
Once you were up, you knew that Chad was hurt.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. Using the poster behind
She
you,
looked like she was about to cry.
show the jury where you were standing.
Where do I see?
And where was Chad?
In front of the seat.
Oh,
After
wow.
you both began to stand up and you were fully standing, you knew you were hurt, you knew he was hurt. Where was he?
He was still here and starts stumbling down the aisle away from me.
Okay. And what are you doing at that point? Your hands burning?
Figuring out what happened. I mean, I knew a shot had rang out, but I didn't know where he was shot or what our injuries were, other than my hand felt like it was gone off of my arm, and I'm watching him collapse. So I know it's bad. It was just shock, I think, panic.
Okay. Now, as you see your husband walking away, somehow it's a blur, you make it to the other aisle.
Yes, I got away from it.
Wow. I just got
Well,
sucked in.
that's the surface. Did you make any phone calls? Did you were trying to contact anyone? What was going on?
No, the old
on
dude
that
said,
aisle?
put the phone away.
No, we can show where it is. That aisle, that. What were you doing before you made it to the end where you could see your husband?
Yes, a gentleman had helped me gave me something, napkins, gave me something to wrap my hand.
You know, the guy,
Yeah,
Reeves,
tried to
he's lucky
contact
he
my
didn't
mother,
get shot.
her
I mean, it's
know
Florida.
that something serious had happened and she
Everybody
was
carries a
scared.
gun there.
And I
Slow
guess
down, slow down.
I guess I'm not making sense. So the gentleman takes the phone and talks to my mother, and the same with Chad's mother. And then I knew I needed to get it together because I wanted to go see Chad and kind of figure out what was going on at the time. But I know from prior experiences that if he saw me panicking, he would be more worried about me. And I didn't want that, so I pulled it together enough to get back to him in front of him where I could look over the aisle at him on the ground. And I see his eyes were just glazed over, and I knew at that moment. But I tell him, Chad, and Lexi, need you please hang in there, we need you. And then I started to lose it, so I walked back away from the scene, not the scene, but from where I could see him. And I went back to the gentleman that had been helping me.
Other people were helping your husband.
Yes, they were doing CPR work, assisting.
Please take your seat. I have a moment.
Yeah, you done with the videos?
I mean,
Yes,
honest to
that's
goodness. So, what point is this guy, Reeves, in fear of his life? You know, this is what you have to think about. He's claiming self-defense. So, at what point is he
Manny,
thinking to
would you
himself,
help me
and
with
they're
this,
going
please,
to
sir?
pull that whole like castle doctrine or stand your ground law stuff? Don't pay attention to that, okay? Yeah, you can't be pushed around, bullied around. You have to understand that's just the way things are. But you have to still satisfy the elements of self-defense.
Yeah. Slowly. Approach the witness, Your Honor. I'm going to show you a series of photographs, and the first one I show you
Just relive all the
is,
stuff again. It's not fair.
Space mark for identification K, JPEG 2067296. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Is that a photograph of you?
It is of me. Yes.
All right. Taken a couple of days after this incident.
Yes.
Let me show you State's Exhibit number L, marked for identification, JPEG number 2067299. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
Is that a photograph of the hand that you felt the burning sensation?
My left hand, yes.
Let me show you State's Exhibit number M, marked for identification. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
JPEG number 2067305. Is that your hand?
It is, yes.
And does that reflect the injury to your hand where you felt the burning sensation?
Yes.
Let me show you State's Exhibit number N as in Nancy, marked for identification, JPEG number 2067347. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
Is that a photograph of your hand?
Yes.
Taken this same time as the very first photographs we talked about?
Yes.
Let me show you State's exhibit number O, marked for identification, JPEG number 2067344. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
Is that a photograph of your hand?
Yes.
And does it represent the injury as it was approximately 2 days after the incident?
Yes.
Let me show you State's exhibit number P.
No, I wasn't
marked
paying
for
attention. What was her
identification. Do you
injury?
recognize that photograph?
Yes.
All right, JPEG number 2067332. Does that photograph depict the injury to your hand approximately 2 days after the incident?
Yes.
At this time, I would move a series of photographs in order as states exhibits 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18.
Any objection?
No objection.
They'll be admitted.
May I publish?
You may.
We know that after this incident, you were treated. You were treated.
Yes.
All right. What did you finally realize happened to your hand?
That my finger was pretty much dangling and holding on just by a string.
Oh,
Finger.
jeez.
All right. Were you taken
The
to the
string would be
hospital?
skin.
Yes.
Did you receive treatment?
I did. Yes.
Did there come a point in time that the treatment included surgery?
Yes.
How long after the incident did you have surgery on your finger?
My best estimate is within a week or so after.
Oh, jeez. Like, what happens to your dangling
Do you
finger?
know, I don't want to say what type of surgery, what did they have to do in order to repair your finger the best they could?
Well, the bone and everything in the finger was so destroyed that they had to take a chunk of bone from my wrist and put it in my finger in order to reconstruct it.
Oh.
So there are pins or metal bolts, not sure the correct terminology for them, that put my finger back together.
Oh.
Okay. The injury that you received from your finger, at the time you received that injury, was your hand in front of your husband's chest?
It was, yes.
And he was injured by the same projectile?
Yes.
How many times was he shot?
I know it sounds silly, but I'm going to ask anyway. You didn't consent to being shot in the hand, right?
No,
All right, so it was against your
it
will.
was, yes.
Oh my!
Injury,
Oh
it's
my
not-
gosh! This doesn't give me very much
The,
faith in the state. Oh goodness gracious!
The mobility that you now have in your finger, is it the same as it was prior to January 13, 2014, or different?
Different.
How is it different?
Well, I've lost all movement in my top joint, and I've lost most of my movement and flexibility in my second joint, resulting in me not being able to grip things and just constant pain when I touch it the wrong way or hit it on something.
Let's talk about the way your finger looked prior to January 13th as opposed to after January 13th. Is there any different in the way your finger looked after being shot?
Yes.
All right, and tell us how it's different.
It's crooked in
Okay.
multiple places. Again, scarred, lots of different tissue and scarring around it. Shorter, not as long as it was prior.
All right. We're going to direct your, may I publish these now, Judge?
You may.
I'm going to direct your attention now to the, I have 2 lights. We're doing that because of the shadow as well. Before you is State's exhibit number 13. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do. Yes, I
Who
do.
is that?
That's me.
Okay. Taken approximately 2 days after the incident.
Correct.
The white material on your hand, what is that?
Gauze.
Had surgery been performed at that point in time?
Not at this point.
I'm going to show you state's exhibit number 14. Give me a minute to orientate it. There we go. You recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
All right, is that a close-up of the hand and the bandaging?
Yes,
Again, before surgery?
yes.
Let me show you state's exhibit number 15. Is that a photograph of your hand on top of a piece of gauze?
Yes.
Which finger was damaged?
My left ring finger.
And is that the way the injury appeared prior to your surgery?
Yes,
And is it that injury that resulted from being shot on the 13th?
yes.
Let me show you state's exhibit number 16. You recognize that photograph?
Yes,
All right, again, is that a close-up of the back of your hand?
yes.
We see there's some red marks on the back side of your left hand. Prior to January 13th, 2014, did you have those red marks on the back of your hand?
No,
Let me show you state's exhibit number 17. There you go. It's a photograph of your hand palm up, looking at your ring finger. Again, do you recognize that photograph?
yes,
And does that photograph represent the injury to your finger
yes,
prior to surgery?
yes.
And finally, state's exhibit number 18. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes,
Again, it's a photograph palm up on a piece of gauze. Is that your ring finger?
it is, yes.
And does that represent the injury that you sustained from being shot on January 13th, 2014?
Yes.
Yeah. I have just a moment, counsel. Your Honor, at this time, may the witness step down and approach the jury box so that they can see the damage and the disfigurement to her finger.
All right. Yes, you may.
So what I'm gonna ask you to do is kind of use these squares as your boundary marker, okay? And if you would just kind of do the shuffle and then show them your finger. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Pause.
I'd like to try to clear up so I understand the sequence of events inside the theater. Number one, Mr. Reeves tells Mr. Olson something to the effect of turn off your phone, right?
Correct.
And at that point, Mr. Olson blows Mr. Reeves off, right?
Yes, he says something back, but pretty much ignores, like,
Okay.
doesn't turn around to engage, just makes a comment over his.
Okay, what is Mr. Olson? I know you don't remember exact words for anyone, right? We can agree with that.
Right.
What is your recollection of, not the exact wording, but what did Mr. Olson say back? What was your impression of that?
What's your problem? The movie hasn't even started yet. Something about the lights or, no noise being made.
Then there was a second request or conversation or at least communication concerning turning off the phone because it was still on, right?
Correct.
And that's from Mr. Reeves.
Right.
And so what is Mr. Olson's response?
Mind your own business.
And then at that point, by now, Mr. Olson's beginning to get annoyed, right?
I'd say they both are.
Well, let's talk about that. Certainly you were familiar with Mr. Olson, being his wife of 7 years.
Yes,
We can agree that you weren't familiar with Mr. Reeves at all, right? Having never met the gentleman before.
correct.
Okay. So for sure you knew that Mr. Olson was annoyed, right?
Yes,
And then there was a communication. Well, I guess I have to go to the manager, that sort of thing. Do I have that right?
correct.
Now, at that point, Mr. Olson answers something to the effect of, well, do what you have to do.
Exactly, yes.
So between the second conversation, at least, and this one, Mr. Olson is annoyed, right?
I'd say so, yes.
And certainly hearing I'm going to the manager also annoyed him, right?
Yes,
Now, when Mr. Reeves gets back, and I know you said it, that Mr. Reeves wasn't loud, right?
correct. They weren't whispering, but they weren't shouting either.
Because in your mind, whispering is the proper way to communicate in a movie theater.
That's mostly what you hear when you go, yes.
And so it wasn't loud in terms of Mr. Reeves. Mr. Reeves' voice.
Louder. Yes, I'd say it was kind of loud, yes.
Okay, so now you're saying it was loud. You know, previously you testified this afternoon that Mr. Reeves' voice wasn't loud.
Okay. And again, let me try to explain. In a movie theater, a whisper would probably be a normal voice that I would expect from people and that I would use. However, it was louder than that. So it was loud compared to what I would expect, but not shouting or screaming.
Louder than a whisper.
Yes. Somewhere in between, shouting and a whisper.
Now, this is supposed to be one of the best
So,
defenses
Mr.
in
Olson was also
Florida.
at the same level or higher than that?
The lawyers
I
for
would say they were both the
Reeves.
same.
Okay. Now, Mr. Reeves leaves, comes back, and now there's some more communication, correct? That's what you described.
Yes,
Now, at this point.
Where's
Mr.
the manager
Olson
for the
has already been annoyed going into it when Mr.
movie
Reeves comes
theater?
back
Why didn't they come out and deal with
communicates
it? If
to
Reeves
him,
went and
tells
talked to
him
him,
something to the
did
effect
Reeves
of,
talk
"I
to
see
the
you put
manager of the
phone
movie
away."
theater even? I don't know.
Certainly, that made Mr. Olson angry.
I can't speak to how he felt, but I would say that they had both been annoyed, angry. Yes,
Well, now you're telling me you can't speak to how Mr. Olson felt, but earlier you were able to tell me that a stranger that you never met before was annoyed. So was Mr. Olson angry when Mr. Reeves came back and said, "I see you put the phone away. I'm sorry, I went to the manager."
I'm sorry. Can you repeat your question again?
You're telling me that you don't remember or you don't know if Mr. Olson was angry or not. But earlier you were able to tell that a stranger's annoyed, right? That's what you told me earlier.
Yes,
And so your own husband.
It was 8
when
years
Mr.
ago.
Reeves gets back and
I mean,
says
come
something
on.
to
This
the
is not
effect
going to
of, "I
look
see you
well
put
to
your
the
phone
jury, I
away.
don't think.
Sorry, I went to the manager." Mr. Olson is angry at that point, right?
I wouldn't say any angrier, but yes, I would say that they would same annoyance as, I couldn't see anything escalate in annoyance, but yes, I would say that he was probably annoyed and angry, just as Mr. Reeves appeared to me,
Well, again, Mr. Reeves didn't raise his voice, right?
and neither did Chad.
Okay, but you know, Mr. Olson, so you know when he's angry, right?
Yes,
You don't know Mr. Reeves,
No.
right? Now, at some point, there's a kind of an escalation. I think that Mr. Olson says something about what is your problem? I was checking on a message or text from my daughter, something to that effect.
or you say an escalation, but no, I would not categorize it as an escalation. I would say it was more of a de-escalation, but yes, he does make that comment.
Well, let's talk about that because
Okay.
right about that time is when Mr. Olson stands up in his seat and turns around, right?
Around that time, not at the exact time, I can't commit to, but around
All right.
that time.
So certainly that's more than just blowing Mr. Reeves off, number one, right? You'll agree with me.
Yes, probably.
Number two, you'd agree with me. It's more than just talking back to Mr. Reeves to say, what's your problem, right?
Say the words would be similar, yes.
Well, but now he's taking physical action, Mr. Olson, right?
He stands up,
And he turns around, right?
correct?
And he
When-
turns around to look at in the row, he's facing towards the road directly behind him,
Yes,
the row that Mr. Reeves is in
yes,
with his wife, right?
This guy,
yes.
when you don't see him, his questions sound very abrasive.
Now,
And when you
Mr.
see
Olson
him, it's
gets
like
up,
you
he
feel
gets
sorry
up
for him.
fast. It's not a slow process, right?
It was standing up normally. I wouldn't say any faster than if I was to stand up out of my chair right now.
Okay. And he gets up. As he gets up, the back of the seat pops up because that's how those seats go, right? You remember that?
I don't remember the seat popping up, no.
Okay. First, let's go back to the question before. So is your testimony today that Mr. Olson did not stand up quickly and turn around?
He stood up, yes, quickly, but I wouldn't say he jumped up. It wasn't springing up out of his seat, it was standing up. And I think anybody can pretty much stand up quickly unless you're probably having trouble with a part of your body that keeps you from standing up.
Okay, like an older person. maybe.
Right.
And so in this case, Mr. Olson stood up quickly. You agree with me?
I would say he stood up, yes.
Well, is he quickly or not?
I wouldn't categorize it as quickly, no. Just,
Okay.
well, that's hard to, yes, he stood up. It didn't take more than a second or two, so I would say that was quickly, yes, if that's what you're asking.
And I'm going to ask you again, the seat you sit on popped up when he sat.
I can't say that I saw it pop up, no.
Okay, it's page 823, the previous court proceeding, line 19. So in this case, we agree, Mr. Olson stood up and he's facing Mr. Reeves. and
Oh,
Mrs.
this is
Reeves,
so exciting.
right?
Correct.
And it's at that point you describe that you are starting to get up at the same time,
Shortly after, Chad, not at the exact same time, no.
okay, shortly after. And during that time, you say you try to get Chad's attention, Mr. Olson's attention,
Correct.
and you were doing that by telling him it's not worth it.
No, I did not say anything to him. That's what I was thinking in my head, but I went to tap him to, let him know that, hey, focus on me, it's not worth it. But I did
Alright.
not say those words, I don't believe,
Now you're showing me that you tapped him with your left hand,
in my left hand.
and because.
Is that the
Mr.
one that
Olson
was shot
is-
off?
Yes,
And so for some reason, you're not using your right hand, right?
correct.
Okay, you'll agree with me that your right hand was closer to Mr. Olson than your left hand.
Yes,
Okay, and when you pointed in the board here, you were using the pointer with your right hand,
I'm right-handed, yes.
but for some reason you chose to use your non-dominant hand to reach across your body to get Mr. Olson's attention. That's your testimony.
Yes,
Objection,
And
relevancy.
To get his attention, you didn't tap him on the shoulder, right?
I didn't have a particular place in mind. It just was a natural
Relevancy.
reaction. Yes, I would
Man,
probably
what the hell
think
does that do with
the
anything?
shoulder would be where I would try to get, but
How does her
Doesn't end
actions
up
of
there.
tapping her
We know
husband?
what happened, so your reaction turned to be to somehow position your left hand between Mr. Olson, Mr. and Mrs. Reeves, right?
yes,
Well, there's video.
Now you saw the
Right.
the video that the prosecutor showed you. You were standing here.
yes,
Now there was one part in the video. It was at, and I know you didn't write down the numbers. It was 13:26:25. In that image, it appears that Mr. Olson is coming across the aisle because in that frame you can see his head and his arm. Your testimony today is you didn't see any of that.
correct.
Well, he was standing next to you, facing the row behind him. You had your hand out to touch him. Did you feel Mr. Olson move at all?
No, I did not.
You can't deny that you saw a figure in the frame going forward, correct?
That is correct.
The next time, it's about 10 seconds away before we see the popcorn grab. That's something else that you say that you did not see, right?
I thought we were just talking about the popcorn.
There was a frame at 13:26:25 that was 10 seconds before the popcorn grab.
Okay.
And the prosecutor stopped it right on that frame. Do you not remember that?
I remember the arm coming out and the popcorn being reached and then the popcorn being thrown. So maybe the numbers are throwing me off.
Well, that was 10 seconds later. So there's something that happened before
Okay.
that's real quickly visible.
I-
Object. I mean, we're just throwing out frame number 13:26. He wants to show it to her, play it. Ask her. I mean, she can't, she
Yeah.
doesn't know frame by frame.
That
Okay, let me ask you a question then. Let's say hypothetically that there's a 10-second gap.
that was a really good objection.
Between Mr. Olson reaching into the back row towards Mr. and Mrs. Reeves and Mr. Olson reaching again back there to grab the popcorn. What were you doing for that time period? After Mr. Olson stood up, what were you doing?
I can't speak to 10 seconds, but I noticed him standing. It drew my attention, just kind of waiting to see what was happening. And then I started to stand up. I'm looking up as I'm standing in front of me. And then I look over to him to tap him. I never look back here any further. I never turned my body around. My feet never moved. My head looked at Chad as I was going to tap him, but I never turned around and saw anything behind me.
Okay, so as you're looking at Mr. Olson, you don't see him lean over
I do not know
at any point.
at any point.
Now, after the firearm was discharged, we can agree that Mr. Reeves didn't say anything.
I did not hear anything, no.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor, and I'm gonna need to play the video. We have that frame.
Do it quickly, please. Do it as quickly as you can, please.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
He gave us the number, so.
Okay, gotcha.
Just take me a few minutes.
Okay. We're all aware of how long it will take. We've seen you a couple times now. It's not that bad. It's okay. Just,
You suck at technology.
yes.
I've been looking for way too long. The stupid, hoping to find the Chad Olson autopsy.
I will too. Just a second. I'm waiting to see if maybe it comes on this time. Doesn't look like it.
So she sued the theaters and she wants more than $15,000 in a jury trial. So it doesn't say what she wants or how the lawsuit ended up. But the $15,000 number, I got a feeling, is just to get into a jury
I have to
trial.
see everything that you guys do, which is why I've been repositioning. We all have to see everything. I messed up my screen. I turned it off and it didn't come back on where it was supposed to, but I can see it up there. See, I do it too.
Okay, so I did find this older article. This is from 8 years ago when this happened.
She may.
Kurt Reeves, 71-year-old retired police officer, is charged with a second-degree murder as being held without bail.
Make sure all the.
Authorities said Reeves became upset when Olson was texting during the previews. The two men got into a verbal argument, and witnesses told officers that Olson threw popcorn at Reeves. 11-minute, 27-second call.
Mr. Michaels asked you about a particular segment, 1326. He used the 25. Let's go ahead and take you to that point.
Gosh, man.
And what I'd like to do.
Finally, we get to see this.
To his escort, Mr. Reeves shut down. At some point, it's going to comment and said. Now, at some point, you told us that Chad stood up,
Yes, one time.
and you stood up with Zach simultaneous almost with him.
A couple seconds later, yes.
And then that's when you were shot.
Yes.
At 13:26:25, let's go back this way. See where your husband is? Okay,
Oh, they're down there on the far right.
all right. He only stood up once, correct?
One time.
And that one time that he stood up, within seconds you were shot.
Yes, correct.
That's it.
That's it.
And that was here.
That's the one.
You did not see the
I
popcorn.
did not.
You know he's standing there,
Yes, I'm standing up.
okay? And you did not see this.
I did not.
But
Why
what
do they
you
not show the
know
shooting?
is you never felt the oscillation.
Right, he was standing up when I showed the tapping. He was not moving forward or backwards.
And then you were shot.
Correct.
What is the time period from the time that you were standing up to when you were shot? Is it 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 second, 2 seconds?
Seconds.
Just-
Seconds, I mean, get out of your seat
And
to
shot.
there.
Shot.
However many seconds that is. 2,
Okay.
3.
Well, objection. Why is she supposed to know this? She didn't time it. Oh.
And you don't know where Mr. Michaels was referring to at 13:26:25. Here, where you see, you weren't shot there,
No, all I see is Reeves.
all right, and see your husband?
No, not at that
Okay.
point.
All right, that's fine, if you don't see it, you don't know it, all you know is you stood up and you got shot.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, she's the victim.
To the popcorn. Which was not a hiss.
All right. It is 6 o'clock. They're going to shut this down.
May this witness be released? Do you want her on standby? What?
She'll be here, so she'll be on standby. Fine.
And council approach on that? Thanks, everybody. Well done. Yeah. Huh. I'm gonna wait. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of the day for today. Thank you for your attention all day. It's
All
been
right.
a
That's
very
it
long
for
day.
now. We'll hear the
I would like to start at 8:30
tomorrow.
and but Madam Clerk just indicated to me that I guess you have a few things to do in the morning before you get here. So if you guys could be here at like 10 after 8, quarter after 8,
Oh, geez, that's
and
crazy.
take care of business.
Who does
with
8
them,
a.m.
and
stuff,
then,
man?
we'll
That's crazy.
do our
Anyway, it'll be
best.
tomorrow.
We're
Widow.
all here on time.
I don't know. I don't think the
but
Widow there's any
there's a
more.
lot of times
So
that things
I don't
come
know
up,
who
as
what
you've
goes next for tomorrow
undoubtedly
for.
seen in the last 6
Hang on, let me
days
stop
you've
this
been
stuff.
with us.
I don't know what's going to
that
be
we
tomorrow's
have to discuss
trial
outside
stuff.
your-
But I did want to catch that with the Widow on stand. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Everyone checks it out. Very dry. I apologize for that. I can't do anything about it. Anyway, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Be good to each other. Please don't throw popcorn at retired cops. They may shoot you for it. And other than that, love you guys. Seriously do. I gotta head back out. I've got those of you that have heard before, I've got family issues I gotta deal with and medical stuff. So happy Valentine's Day to everyone. And yeah, did you like how I segment into that? Anyway, I mean that though. St. Valentine's Day is a fabulous day. It's a day of love, and I hope. Gosh, I gotta do something with my wife. I forgot I had a wife for a second. Anyway, love you guys, really do. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Until next time.